Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Wow, it looks like we've already got a great turnout for today's Powerplay Tuesday. Incredibly excited to have you guys all on today. Thank y'all so much for joining. Today, excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. So today we're going to be doing a presentation. We actually invited Michael Hoang on to talk about transactional lending. So I really hope you guys are looking forward to this as much as I am. And just to give a little quick disclaimer, if you guys are familiar with Quest at all, you've seen some of our presentations, some of our webinars, anything like that. You've probably seen this before, but it is really just saying that Quest and really by extension myself, we do not provide any sort of tax, legal, investment, or deal structuring advice. We're not licensed attorneys, licensed CPAs, anything like that. So please bear that in mind and kind of take this information, for its educational purposes, essentially. Certainly any questions you have regarding self-directed IRAs, regarding transactional lending, we will have a little bit of time for Q&A at the very end. So I'm going to ask you guys to put all your questions in the chat. We'll kind of bring them up like this, and I'll actually use this first question here as an example. This session is going to be recorded. We will post it. It'll automatically upload to our YouTube channel and our Facebook as well, probably within a few minutes of the presentation concluding. So after a few minutes, y'all will be able to view the recording for anybody that needs that, and we'll also try to send it out as well. But kind of back to the matter at hand, any questions y'all have for Michael, for myself, post them there in the comments, and we will get those to Michael at the end, like I said, when we have some time for Q&A. So without further ado, I do just want to give a brief introduction actually for Michael. He is a Houston-based real estate investor, started several years ago and kind of found his own financial freedom just 3 years into doing this himself. And after, starting, if you guys are familiar with the BRRRR Method, which stands for buy, renovate, I think it's renovate, rehab. Michael, you might have to help me out with that one. Refinance, redo, recycle, something like that. But he started off using the BRRRR method, creating cash flow through single family rental homes while still working a full-time job, and kind of has now taken that and transitioned into doing several different aspects of the real estate investments, and now wants to share that with you guys and is looking to educate the community as well. So now we will just go ahead and bring Michael up here, and I'm going to remove that little disclaimer there. Michael, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I'm really interested in learning a little bit more, and you can probably talk to everybody a little bit more about the BRRRR method than maybe I'm equipped to. So
that's right.
And just run with it.
You had it, Colin. It's buy, rehab, refinance, repeat.
I knew I was close there.
Or buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. See, I missed one of the R's too. Who
there
knows?
It is. Yeah,
you can make a lot of money and still mess up an acronym.
Absolutely. Right. Well, I will go ahead and bring your presentation up here if you want to just get that started.
I think it's going to happen on my end. Is it? Let me see. It's going to happen on my end. There we go. Can you guys see it?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. All right, it works. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Hoang, and today we're going to be talking about how I made $5,000 in just 24 hours using my Roth IRA. How do we do that? Transactional lending. But first, who am I? I got a brief introduction there from Colin, but my name is Michael Hoang. This is my wonderful wife here on the screen. Her name is Thuy Hoang. We've been married for almost 6 years now. This is a photo of us on vacation in DC. I worked in a number of industries, from oil and gas to commercial construction, and most recently the telecom industry. I started from the bottom, technician, laborer, worked my way to supervisory roles, and then now management. And a majority of my W-2 career has been focused on environmental and regulatory science, which is a real fancy way of saying safety management. So we started investing in 2018. And here actually is the photo on screen is the day that we closed on our first property. This is an A-leaf in what used to be called Chinatown, is now called the International District. When we lived there, it was called Chinatown. We started with house hacking. So a little bit of the goal was I'm so goal driven and goal oriented that before I married my wife, I was renting a room for $600 a month while I was working my W-2, and it didn't matter to me. I'm very, very goal oriented, and so I do whatever works. And so when I was dating her and said we're going to get married, we're going to buy a house, but we're going to house hack it. And we started by learning this kind of stuff from, well, where a lot of people start, YouTube University. It's where you guys are right now. We're all a member of YouTube University. And so I started with Bigger Pockets and other personalities, and decided that the strategy to start with, you can start wherever it makes sense for you, but for us, house hacking is what made the most sense. And so when we were looking for a home, we didn't really care about our own needs. We cared about the needs of our business, our objective, and our life goals. And so we were looking for houses with larger floor plans, a lot of bedrooms, and lower price points. And so that led us to older communities inside the Beltway. And so we closed on this one in 2018, and the goal kind of stayed the same, right? I was paying $600 a month for rent. Then I buy a house, and I said, look, I've got house hacking doesn't always make you money. Sometimes it just lowers your cost of living. And in our case, the goal was, if I can continue to pay $600 a month or less and house hack and own an asset and have something appreciating and getting tax benefits and write-offs, great, let's do that. It turned out us living for free in this thing, renting out by the room. We did things correctly, worked really hard, and we ended up living for free in this house hack. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about accounting, tax codes, about leasing and tenant selection, online marketing. And then from house hacking, we invest in syndications, multifamily. There's syndications that focus on a number of things. We're just really attracted to multifamily. I understand that business really well. And this is just the path that we followed. You don't have to start with house hacking and then investing in syndications. It's just what we did. And then we evolved into doing our own buy and hold single family houses using the BRRRR method, which let's see if I can say it right. Colin messed it up. I messed it up. But it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. 4 R's. 4 R's. I always forget the fourth R. So using the BRRRR method, we did our own marketing, actually. We did direct to seller marketing, which you don't have to. Wholesalers have great deals. But we did our own direct to seller marketing, and I'm just a glutton for self-abuse, I guess, because I analyzed all the zip codes in the Houston area because we wanted to stay investing in the Houston metro area, and I just looked at the average income, the average price points, rents, appreciation, school districts. We looked at crime statistics, and we just decided that Katy. I found 7 zip codes at the time. Not all of them were in Katy, but out of that, I narrowed it down, and I said, Katy's where we're going to plant our flag. That's going to be our farm, and that's where we're going to start building our portfolio. And so we did direct to seller marketing, which turned into the BRRRR method. And fun fact, the house I'm in right now I'm in Katy now using the BRRRR method, and a house that we purchased with private funds from a longtime Quest client. So I'm very thankful for that, and I'm kind of living proof that the system works here. And so we have this little joke that we like to tell, that like the media portrays real estate investors as some evil villains living on the hill. The reality was our tenants drove nicer cars than us, lived in nicer houses than us. Because again, we're just very goal oriented and we just like to live below our means. And so we drive 10 to 12-year-old paid off cars still to this day. Both of our cars are paid off and are older. So where are we now? Well, as I said, we're living in a home in Katy now. We actually still own the house in the photo on the screen in A-Leaf. We'll probably be selling that one soon. Maybe, still haven't decided on that one yet. But we're living right now in this house I'm coming from in Katy, and the goal, that 600 number, I guess if I had a lucky number, my lucky number is 600 or something. Because the goal was I paid 600 a month to rent a room, then to house hack and keep it 600 a month or less. And then I said we will move into our own house and not have roommates anymore when we can live in a house for $600 a month or less. And so it's funny how life works when you just work really hard and stick to your goals and just maintain focus and discipline. That when we moved into this property, we didn't pay $600 a month to live here. We actually had our whole cost covered. And it just took 2 other properties. So we moved out of the house in this photo here, rented that house out. And just with 3 properties, I reached what they call level 1 financial freedom. So I love that, and I just stole that. And so I like to tell people I was financially free with just 3. So it doesn't take a lot of properties to achieve your goals, depending on what your goals are. And so what am I doing now? Transactional funding, which is what we're here to talk about today. So what is transactional funding? It's just like it sounds. You're funding a transaction. It's typically short term. Can be as quick as 24 hours, can go longer depending on the deal structure and the needs of both you and the borrower. It's typically used, at least what I've seen, is typically used to produce 2 sets of closing documents to provide privacy, keep everybody anonymous. In my case, the client is usually wholesalers, and they work really hard to find their buyers, and a lot of good wholesalers will have a handful of VIP buyers who just buy from them month in and month out, and they want to protect that relationship that they've worked really hard to build. Other times they want to double close because it could be a regulation. There are some states and some cities where they're required to double close. And there are some title companies out there I've heard that only want to do transactions if they double close. And so there's lots of reasons why a wholesaler or an end buyer might want to double close. Just depends on their own situation there. So double closing involves 2 real estate transactions typically on the same day. One between the seller and investor, and one between the other investor and the buyer. So in this case, on this PowerPoint, if you could just, whoever the investor is, or you could replace that with transactional borrower or wholesaler. In my case, it was a wholesaler. Just take those words out and put wholesaler in there, or your client. Because we're here to talk about transactional lending. And it's used to quickly resell a property for a profit without using their own funds. Here's like a little depiction here. I wanted to like make a more comprehensive chart to kind of make help people understand it, but this was the quickest and easiest thing I could come up with without getting too far into the weeds. And so you see seller to investor, and then investor to buyer. And then in that case, you could strip out that word investor and replace it with your client, wholesaler in my case. And even though it says to be used, it's used by investors to quickly resell a property without using their own funds. The reality is, it's not because they don't have their own funds. I've met wholesalers that do a lot of business, have a lot of cash, and they put it in syndications to create reliable passive income for themselves. Other times they might be flipping and doing rentals themselves, so their cash might be tied up in the property. So when you're doing transactional lending, it's not necessarily, you're not saying, let me find someone with no money. That may not be the best way to go, but just someone who doesn't want to use their own money. And so what does transactional funding look like? So we're going to use nice round numbers here to help everyone visualize it. So wholesale has a property under contract for $100,000. They're selling it to a house flipper or landlord for $150,000. Right? Real easy to understand. So I, the transactional lender, would wire 100,000 to the title company, always to a title company. This isn't a brown paper bag in an alley type of situation. Always do everything through a title company. The title company makes sure that no one takes custody of the funds unless they're supposed to. So I wire 100,000 into a title company. Title company, the deal closes. The end buyer, we call them the end buyer, the house flipper or the landlord, whoever the end buyer is, they wire in the 150 to pay for the property, and then the title company gives me my 100,000 back plus whatever the lending fee was. The fees, they range. We're in a capitalist free market society, and they range between 1.5% to 5% is what I've seen, and then typically I've seen the lower the transactional loan, the higher the percentage of the fee is, just to make it worth everybody's time, because we're dealing with smaller amounts of money. And so in this scenario, $5,000 is earned within 24 hours. So case study, here's an actual transaction. So wholesaler had a property under contract for $250,000 in Cyprus. I asked for a 2.5% fee. That comes out to $6,250 after some negotiation. And because they're a repeat client we've done business with before, they wanted to pay $5,000. That works. So that works out to a 2% fee for me. And because I used my self-directed Roth IRA, I earned $5,000 tax-free in a single day. So who needs transactional funding? In my case, I'm looking for wholesalers, but there are other people who would use transactional funding. There are small business that have capital constraints. There are sometimes a house flipper or a buy and hold investor, the end buyer. Sometimes they might require transactional funding. But in my case, I'm looking for wholesalers. That's who I've worked best with so far. Now we're going to talk about due diligence. Due diligence is everybody's responsibility. It's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's a title company's responsibility. It's a wholesale. It's the end buyer. Everyone's responsible for their own due diligence. So this is an important piece that we have to talk about. So first, I start by speaking to a title company. Not all title companies are the same. A lot of retail users, people who've used them to buy their personal residence, a lot of people think that all title companies are the same, and they're not. Some of them focus on just investor transactions, working with wholesalers, house flippers, people who do the BRRRR method, and some of them focus just on retail transactions, just people wanting to own a home. So first I would start by talking to a title company, and if they're not comfortable with what I'm doing, if they don't seem to know what I'm doing, I'm not going to push them out of their comfort zone. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. If they don't know how to do it, if they're asking a lot of questions, they're probably not the title company for me. So I'm looking for a title company that's been around for a long time. I prefer local. Here in Houston, we have lots of great title companies here, and I prefer someone who's done this before. I don't want to push them out of their comfort zone. And for the next person that I need on my team, I need an attorney, a real estate attorney, and I want a referral for my documents to be created. You're going to need a note and other documents created, and I'm going to lean on my title company to do that. They all have great attorneys they work with. I'm not bringing my uncle, my cousin, my brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews. I'm not doing any of that. I want an attorney that the title company has worked with before. They have a great relationship. Everyone knows what they're doing. I'm going to use their referral 10 out of 10 times. Then I'm going to ask my borrower, which in this case is the wholesaler. I'm going to ask them for a copy of their PSA, their purchase and sale agreement. And I want to make sure the deal makes sense, right? If they're telling me they're buying it for 100 and they're selling it to 150 to their end buyer, like in our first visualization we did, I'm great with that. The deal makes sense. I don't need to know every little detail of everything in a transaction, but I need to know at a high level it makes sense. But if I get a contract that says $150,000 purchase price and resell for 100, whoa, red flag, pump the brakes. What's going on here? Is this a typo? Does this wholesaler not know what he's doing? Did he give me the wrong documents? Mistakes happen. He might have emailed me the wrong thing. And so I'm going to look at it and just make sure it makes sense. And so I also prefer working with seasoned wholesalers. People have been doing it a while. I have worked with newbies before, and that's fine. And I'm open to continue doing so. just might take a little more time, a little more work. You might have to guide them a little bit on the process. I'm perfectly okay with that because we all have to start from somewhere. But a lot of your return customers are going to come from seasoned wholesalers, people with a lot of transaction volume, and that's who you like to build relationships with. And so where do I find my transactional borrowers? Well, at RIA meetups. RIA stands for Real Estate Investment Association. Hey, I got that one right on the first time, unlike the BRRRR Method. And whatever city, whatever state you're in, just Google RIA and your city name. There's tons of them. And they're full of people coming together looking to do deals. Conferences, local, state, national conferences. There's probably several conferences a month. You can go to as many conferences as you want. And a little pro tip, the further you have to travel for a conference and the higher the ticket price to get in, the more serious people are about doing business together, is what I've learned. So I love conferences. If you have a business, it can be considered tax write-off, or at least in my case, it was. Talk to your own accountant and your own CPA where you live. But in my case, it was a cost of running my business, so it's a write-off. Love conferences. Social media. I like something Mark Cuban said one time that I stole, is that when you get long, get loud. And so when you're doing something, let everybody know, right? I liken it to throughout this process, I got licensed as a real estate agent, and I steal their little motto that someone told me, that my real estate agent mentor told me. He said, secret agents don't get paid. In fact, I'll give him credit for that. It's Chris Bounds here in Houston, who's also a Quest client. He said, secret agents don't get paid. And so I take that in all of my businesses. Secret lenders don't get borrowers. Secret wholesalers don't get contractors. When you get long, get loud, let the world know. And so I posted on my story, on my timeline. There's Facebook groups specifically for real estate in your town. You can post in there, let people know what you're doing, and get the word out. And here's my favorite one, Quest Socials. Quest has a lot of events going on, whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually. You guys are attending one right now, in person, virtual. It's a high quality group of people that come to Quest. It's people with deals, with money, that are there to build a business, build a future for themselves. And I love going to Quest Socials, have a bite to eat, have a drink, and see if you guys can build something meaningful together. And next we have, and I just want to add another note in there. My private lender first came from Quest. This house that we're sitting in right now came from a private loan from a Quest lender. I'm a Quest client myself, and all that was made possible by the events they put on together with their hardworking Questies who make it happen. So where do I find the money to be a transactional lender? Well, there's lots of places you can find it. IRAs, ESAs, that stands for Education Savings Account, solo 401ks, and other self-directed accounts. In my case, it's a Roth IRA. Me and my wife both have Roth IRAs. And my retirement accounts are 100% self-directed. Guys, once you get into this, you're not going to go back to Wall Street. You're going to realize that you don't need Wall Street. Somebody, I steal stuff from everybody. Somebody always said that we build our own economy here when we're doing businesses locally. And so I like being not exposed to the wild whipsaw that is Wall Street or the global financial system. I like not being exposed to some politician far, far away who doesn't know and doesn't care about me and my family's goals and needs. And so that's why once I discovered self-directed IRAs, that was the only place I'm going to put my retirement money going forward. And then 100% of our retirement money is self-directed, and 100% of our self-directed accounts are with Quest, will only be with Quest. I probably wouldn't be here today if I didn't build out my portfolios with the services Quest lenders provide and the services that their team provides. And I'm a Quest client today. And so I put up my contact information here. There is a QR code you guys can scan to get on my link tree. If you guys, that'll take you to my Facebook, my Instagram, and my Calendly link. If you guys want to get my attention, get on a 30-minute call with me. I've got nothing to sell, but I love to look at deals with people and answer any questions that you guys might not be able to get in the chat now. I know Colin's going to come on here in a second. We're going to go over some questions if there are any. You guys feel free to reach out. And like I said, when you get long, get loud. Well, my deals are posted on my Instagram. I put them on my stories. You can see what I'm doing, what me and Twee are doing. We're about to go spend a couple months in Asia. We're really excited about that, to celebrate my wife graduating her master's program. So if you guys want to follow along and see that, it's going to be awesome. We're going to post a lot of really interesting food. And you can check out my deals and find out or learn more about this wonderful game called real estate using self-directed IRAs. Colin, are you on?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael, and congratulations to your wife. That's great.
Wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah. There you go. So okay, yeah, we definitely have some questions that came in, and we will get to those. Oops, here shortly. I didn't mean to remove Michael. But really quick, I do just want to kind of connect this all back to how this works with Quest. Where do we fall into the picture? How do you use a self-directed IRA for things like this? Guys, if you've got some questions like this, you're interested in actually using your retirement funds, right? Like Michael mentioned, money in a 401k, 403b, TSP, TRS, 457. I mean, there's all these different types of accounts out there, but any type of qualified retirement plan, funds that you have access to, you can use for real estate investing for doing things like this. So let us know if you have questions, if you're current Quest account holders and you're interested in doing something very specific like this. Let us know, let Michael know, and we're happy to answer your questions. But for those of you that are not as familiar with us, but you're kind of interested in asking some questions, getting more information, or even pursuing those next steps, feel free to scan that QR code. We'd be happy to speak with any of you, whether it's myself or one of the other IRA specialists. I highly encourage you guys just to set up some time. It's a completely free consultation, and we would be more than happy just to determine if there is a fit between you and Quest, and kind of what that might look like. Otherwise, this is actually regarding the current promotions that we have right now. If y'all are referred to Quest by others, or maybe you have some friends, family, business partners that are looking for something like this, you can refer them to Quest, and both of you would be able to earn $50 credit to your account. So for the referee and the referrer, certainly something to keep in mind, and that is exciting stuff. Normally it's $25, so until I think it's ending at the end of September, the 30th. It's doubled for the time being. So y'all will be able to take advantage of that. I also want to just briefly touch on our Gold Family plan, is what we call it here at Quest. This is something. Oh, I apologize. Is there still an echo? I see somebody commented that. Hopefully it's all clear now. I know sometimes I get a little feedback. I'm right next to like an elevator server room. So if you guys do hear that come through, I apologize. I'll try to. That's probably what it is right there. Anyways, we're just going to try to talk through it. This Gold Family Plan is something that we've had at Quest for a while now, and we are trying to promote it a little bit more because we really believe in it, and especially for individuals who have multiple accounts here. They have accounts set up for their families, whether it's ESAs for their children, HSAs, things like that. You are actually able to kind of combine those accounts together and be a part of our Gold Family service, where you have tailored and expedited processors, a team that is dedicated to you. A lot of times it can save you in fees and things like that as well. So if that applies to you, let us know, and we can look at if it makes sense to switch over. And then the last thing here, if you guys do know Quest at all, y'all probably have heard about an Expo in the past, this is our huge conference. It's something that we try to host once a year. Doesn't always quite get there. The last one we did was in September of 2022, so we are kind of skipping 2023 to plan, prepare, and just get everything ready for the next event. The last one we had over 1,000 people there in attendance. It was actually in Houston. This next expo in June of 2024, we're going to have in the Dallas area, in Irving, Texas. So I highly encourage you guys to check this out. Look at more information on our website. It's a weekend-long event, all 3 days really, and we're going to be bringing on speakers, investment experts on all different kinds of alternative assets and related topics. Throughout the whole weekend, experts across the country will be having panels, Q&A sessions, and different things going on throughout the weekend. So if y'all are interested in learning more, being able to do some networking, there's just going to be all sorts of different offers and opportunities at this event. Like I said, would certainly encourage y'all to check it out and be able to learn a little bit more. You can, again, call us if you have any questions or scan that QR code, or click on that link that Miss Rebecca just posted in the comments. So
great quality people. I was at the last Quest Expo. Great quality people, a lot of money in the room. I got to meet Emmett Smith. It was awesome.
Yeah, Emmett was there. That was a lot of fun. I wish one of my colleagues, if you guys are familiar with Steve Sabaji, got to kind of be his bodyguard for the weekend and walk him around everywhere. So that, unfortunately, I did not get that role. But yeah, having Emmett Smith there was great for any of you Dallas Cowboys fans. But that's really all I've got. If you guys have questions about any of that, please contact us. And now I kind of want to get into some of the questions that we have, and let's get those pulled up. So, Michael, the first one that we have here is, I guess, just regarding transactional lending in general and kind of how it compares to hard money. Somebody had a question: isn't this the same as a hard money loan?
So yes and no, it's not the same as hard money. Typically a hard money lender wants to keep their money out for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, whatever they work out with you. I would say the difference between transactional lending and hard money lending is that I'm getting the money back immediately. I have minimal risk. When your hard money's out there, rehabs can fail, other things can go wrong. And I would say like a hard money lender is more like a professional shop who's set up to just lend all day long on lots of multifamily or single family, multifamily projects. They call them bridge lenders when hard money does multifamily or commercial projects. So I wouldn't say this is the same as hard money. However, it might feel a little same from the lender side. If you're doing it out of your own IRA, some of the mechanics might be the same, but I wouldn't consider, if someone was a hard money lender or a transactional lender, I would understand it to mean something a little different with their exposure, their time limit, stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, certainly some similarities there. Another one here, and this is, I guess, kind of just referring to the house contract itself. If the buyer is wiring, the end buyer is wiring 150,000, why do you wire 100,000 for the transaction as well?
So we want to double in this scenario. We wanted to the wholesaler wanted to double close, and so the wholesaler needed to own the property. They need to take title of the property in their name or their LLC's name before they could then resell it. Both of these transactions are happening back to back at the same time. In this scenario, they're happening same business day. And so the wholesaler needs to have the cash to purchase the home. In the numbers we went over, they bought it for 100, but they had their in buyer, they bought it for 100,000. They had their in buyer ready to buy it at 150,000. So in order for them to double close, create those two sets of documents, in some cases, they need to do this to comply with their local laws and ordinance. Sometimes they just want to create privacy and protect who their VIP end buyer is that they do a lot of business with. But regardless of why they're doing it, in order for them to do a double close, They need to provide the 100K to buy it themselves and then immediately resell it. And so while everything's planned out in advance, they still need that $100,000 to do the transaction. Sometimes they do it with their own money. Sometimes they want to do it with borrowed money. But at any rate, they have to wire the money in, wire the money out. I know the first time I heard it sounded a little silly, but once you kind of see the mechanics and you understand how it works, and for example, my clients, these wholesalers, they're making a lot of money. They know what they're doing. They're professionals. So for them to pay $5,000-$6,000 in my case is nothing for them to get this job done when they have a profit of roughly $50,000. But they got to have the money to consummate the transaction through the title company.
Yeah, and somebody had a good comment here as well. You know, it certainly depends on your local and state laws. So that's kind of where attorneys can come into play as well and help with that. You know, as you know, Michael.
Yeah. I also saw Workergenics comment about helping us out there in the beginning: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. Thank you very much for
I
that.
noticed that too. This one right here. Yes. Thanks, Workergenics. We appreciate that. We were struggling a little bit. So another question here, do you pay for the notes and the documents drafted up with the attorney, or kind of what's your process there?
Yeah, I do. You can work something out because it becomes templatized. There's ways you can work that out with your lender, but for simple math, underwrite your deal as if you're doing it every time. It gets cheaper the more often you do it. Sometimes the documents don't need to be changed much. And I mean, I've had documents done by attorneys for like, I don't want to give out like your expectations, but I've had documents turned around by an attorney who works for the title company for like $115. And so this is not a lot of money when we're talking about making $5,000+ in your retirement account. But worst case scenario, expect to pay for them every time.
Yes, and I saw another question come in about the recording, so I wanted to address this again in case anybody missed this initially. But this is being recorded. It will be posted on the Quest YouTube and Facebook channels within a few minutes. It should automatically upload, so y'all will see it there shortly after. This question from Natasha is about house hacking, and more specifically what it is.
I don't know. I just made it up. No, Natasha. House hacking is when it can mean two things. I understand it, where you buy a house and you rent out by the room. So there's people like what we did. We bought a 5-bedroom home in A-Leaf, took the master, rented out the bedrooms to individuals on a monthly basis. There's people who may get one roommate and then Airbnb one of the other bedrooms. There's another way you can do it where, let's say, if you have kids or your wife's not on board or your spouse is not on board and you want more privacy, some people just buy a duplex, rent out one side, live in the other, duplex, triplex, fourplex. Little pro tip for you there, Natasha. Most FHAs, VAs, conventional, they'll go up to 4 units. So generally speaking, we don't consider it apartments or commercial real estate till we go above 4 units. So people can house hack in a fourplex, a triplex, a duplex, which we looked at starting out. We couldn't find what we were looking for in the time limits that we needed. So we ended up buying a single family home, renting by the room. Airbnb is also an option. And if you want to get real crazy, I know somebody who house hacked that in order for them to meet their goals, they rented out every single room in their house, including making one of them Airbnb, and they hung up a blanket and slept in their living room. They turned their living room into, I'm not that wild, but some people get that crazy with house hacking. It might be a little bit of a cult. That's
interesting.
But you can get as wild as you want with it, Natasha.
Yeah. I think that's really the most common example of house hacking is just, kind of using your own house and renting other rooms out. Just making a little bit of money on the side that way. Okay. Michael, do you think it will make any difference if the TREC laws change about wholesaling?
Of course. Yeah. Goal number 1 is to comply with our regulations. If TREC laws change, wholesaling will change. Will wholesaling go away? I don't think so. That's not how it works, in my opinion. There is a need for this thing called wholesaling. These aren't people taking advantage of people. This is how we get property back into the market. There are so many unfinanceable, unlivable homes around us, and wholesalers have a very important function of providing opportunity to the people with the capital, the means, and the skill set to get it back on the market. In some states, Roger might be talking about what's happened in some states like Illinois and other places. Their laws change, and instead they put the wholesaler puts the home in an LLC and then sells the LLC, and that's legal in their states. In other cases, they just use double closing. And so I think if TREC laws change, yes, wholesaling will change, but I don't see it going away. And if you stay plugged in to communities like our Quest meetups, there will be people there who will keep you up to date with any changes that are going on.
Absolutely. One question here, more related to the self-directed side. Does Quest act as custodian of 529 plans, and can those be used to invest in real estate? So for those of you that don't know, 529 plans are a type of education savings plan similar to ESAs. We don't do 529 plans. We focus solely on Coverdell ESAs or Coverdell education savings accounts. We find them to be a little bit more flexible just because 529s are really more specified towards your state. And there are certain pros and cons to each, obviously, but ESAs, yes, you can use those education savings for your children to invest in real estate. And the nice thing about ESAs as well, Coverdell ESAs, is that they're not just meant for higher education expenses. So you can use them elementary school, junior high, high school. It doesn't just have to be going towards a university or college degree. Let's see what else. Another question from Natasha. Is there a limited amount on how much of your SDIRA we can lend? No, there's not. You're able to invest. I mean, if it's money you have in a retirement account, certainly there are some contribution limits and I guess limitations as to how much you're able to funnel into a retirement account every year, talking about money strictly coming from your bank account. But if it's money you've got in an IRA, then there's really no limit as to how much you can lend out. And kind of on top of that, how much return or profit you can make on those investments as well. So it can be fairly lucrative. A few questions here for us. Is there any Quest form where all Quest members post their investment needs? Not necessarily. That's kind of why we do try to do some in-person events as well, and networking events where folks can come out, meet like-minded investors, meet borrowers, meet lenders, whatever it is you're kind of looking for, pitch investment deals or services, opportunities. That's kind of the reason for those. I would certainly encourage you to check out our events page, and you can kind of see if you're located in the Texas area, what local events we do have coming up between Austin, Dallas, and Houston. And then we also do some online networking as well, which kind of works a little bit differently, but that's available too.
I love some of these questions coming in. Keep them coming, guys.
Absolutely.
I'll go until Quest resources are needed elsewhere.
There are some really great questions here. Let's see. So just briefly here, the I guess Quest administrative fees are going to vary a little bit. Typically, it's $100 to set up, $125 for transactional fees to make any kind of investment or something like that, and then we do charge administrative fees on an ongoing basis as well. Those really do vary based on the investment types or the structure, the amount that you have in the account. It can vary based on a few things. So I would recommend you check out. We have our fee schedule posted under the forms tab on our website, and that's kind of a great resource to get a more accurate idea of what the fees would look like. Are they, see, I think this is a question more related to the transactional lending. Are they all a 24-hour turnaround?
They don't all have to be a 24-hour turnaround. Sometimes wiring takes a while. However, how I feel about it is if you did your due diligence, if all the title instructions make sense, the title company is not going to play any funny business. That's what they're there to do. They're there to be the facilitator of the transaction. And so if it takes 48 hours, I don't care. If I did my due diligence on the front end, I've got nothing to worry about. And I did want to clarify real quick that if you're using your self-directed IRA for a real estate investment, you cannot live in that investment. I wanted to clarify that. I meant to say that earlier. And so if someone else is if you're borrowing someone else's IRA funds for real estate investment, you can live in it, right? But you can't self-deal. You can't put your IRA funds in something that you live in. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that's a very good point to make. So it'd be hard to you wouldn't be able to essentially use your own property, put that in an IRA and house hack it, right? That's exactly self-dealing, or what they would call a prohibited transaction. So certainly there are some limitations there, although really if you're kind of keeping IRA investments in your own personal assets separate, that's normally the cleanest way to do it, I guess. And this is kind of a fun one too. What is the least amount that you have loaned, and what was the rate that you got on that?
So the least amount of a transaction that I found that people could possibly take was 30,000, maybe it was 32,000, and the rate was higher because the deal was longer. I wouldn't call it transactional funding, but there are people that do a certain type of transaction called sub 2, and when they need money to catch up when they're doing a sub 2 transaction. And so typically this borrower would give you a second position lien on a home, and the interest rate will be higher. You can work that out. It can be as high as 12%. And your money's going to be out longer. But for smaller balances, expect to get a higher percentage rate, but expect your money to be out longer.
Absolutely. Let's see if we want to tackle this one a little bit. I guess what's the biggest risk associated with?
I'm glad you asked this, Jeffrey. I love this question. The biggest risk, when I first started, the biggest risk was the dirt, the bricks, the sticks, the people, the rain, the hail, the wind, the insurance, the taxes. That's what I thought was the biggest risk. After I got started, I now understand what the real biggest risk was. The biggest risk was not taking action. The biggest risk was letting the money sit in my account. The biggest risk was letting that specter of inflation, whether it's 8%, 2%, 12%, whatever inflation truly is, which I don't think we know the real number, whatever that is, the biggest risk is not taking action. Or the biggest risk is leaving my money in the stock market to let someone else decide what to do with it. The biggest risk was for me and my family not to take our own destiny in our own hands. That's what I learned the real biggest risk is. Everything else, there's a forum post, a guy at a meetup who knows how to solve it, a link on YouTube. There's someone at a Quest meetup, at the next Quest meetup, who knows how to answer all of your questions about any true risks, except the risk of inaction. No one can take care of that risk but you. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the typical amount for a transaction?
So median price points. So it's going to be a factor of, so I'm assuming you're here in Houston, TIG, but if you're not, probably look at like what the median price points in your market is. For here, 150 to 250,000 is what you can expect, 100 to 200,000. Because remember, wholesalers are buying things at a discount. So if you live somewhere where the median house price is $1 million, expect your if you want to do transactional funding, expect it to be south of that number, and not by a whole lot. So I would say here in Houston, 100,000 to 200,000 is probably what you're going to be looking at for transactional lending.
Yeah. What about any bad experiences you've had, a deal gone bad with transactional funding?
The only deals I've had go bad are the deals that never closed. I never lost any money. I never put any money into the deal. All of that's done on due diligence. Again, you're going to, like I said, use an attorney that has a relationship with the title company, look at the documents, get help from people you trust, people who've done things in the past. And again, the title company is the referee on this. Same thing when I sell a property. I'm a licensed agent. I don't need to be the agent that sells all my properties. I let a referee handle all that, let them keep the ball in bounds. Same thing with a title company. I've never had a title company not do what is in the documents that everyone signed and agreed to and they approved before the transaction begins. Never had that happen. So my bad experiences is the deal not happening and the money never leaving my account. That's the worst experience you could have, is just let your money sit there in cash and not be able to find a deal or take action.
Yeah, absolutely. One question here, kind of pivoting back to the IRAs, self-directed accounts. I mean, this is very circumstantial, right? Because what might make sense for one person may not for another. It certainly depends on your situation. I see Ivan commented here HSA, and that's kind of I guess an easy answer to go to. They do. If you guys are not too familiar with these accounts, a lot of people refer to HSAs as the account that is the best of both worlds, because you can actually fund it with pre-tax dollars. And as long as you're using the profit investment gains that you're making, those funds going towards health expenses, qualified health expenses, you can actually take the funds out tax-free, so it doesn't get taxed at the front or the back end. Which is pretty unique and can be extremely powerful too. For those who've got children, ESAs are a great option. Depending on your age and your investment horizon, sometimes Roth IRAs don't always make the most sense as opposed to traditional pre-tax accounts. So this is something, Rich, that I would certainly say feel free to reach out to us about if you've got some questions on what is the best fit. We're happy to kind of help walk you through some of the options. A lot of times, a CPA or an accountant would be the best person to consult about that as well. And going back to Jeffrey's question about risk, what can go wrong during a transaction, and what are, I guess, some of the mitigations or preventative measures you can take, and even resolutions after the fact?
Everything's taken care of before the transaction consummates. And if the transaction doesn't actually happen, the title company gives you your money back. Again, this is happening 24 to 48 hours. The title company doesn't give custody of the funds, everybody, and unless it's in the instructions. This is why due diligence is so important. And I would say that this is a very low risk strategy compared to other things that I've done in the past. I haven't had anything go wrong because I did my homework on the front end. I vetted everybody. I read all the documents. We used a great title company, and a little bit of work on the front end saves you a lot of headache on the back end, Rich. WLMG22.
There you go. And actually, they then followed up and said you answered the question, but now you get the answer.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, I think let's see. We've got one more question posted in here, and we may have time for another couple after that. If y'all do have any more, please go ahead and comment them. But have you ran the numbers to see what your overall return has been over the course of a year versus a typical private loan at 12%?
I love that question, Evan. So that is a presumptuous question, because you're presuming that you have infinite number of transactional deals here and an infinite number of private loans here, and you just get to pick and choose, and every Monday morning at 9 a.m. one served up to you. I haven't ran the numbers like that because I'm not worried about the tax-free returns in my Roth IRA. I'm worried about quality operators, quality deals that make sense to me. My money's been in everything, like I said, from syndications to house hacks to you name it. I've been involved in those transactions with my money. Haven't sat down and did the spreadsheet, but for me, I'll take a 1% return, right? If there's absolutely zero risk and the money's coming back to me in 0.1 seconds, and I'll do that over and over and over again, right? And so I'm looking for quality people, quality deals, and I don't have a pool for private money. I don't have a pool for transactional money. I just have great relationships.
Yeah. As they say, your network is your net worth.
Right. Exactly.
Do you have any particular title company that you use?
I've used a couple. I used Fidelity in the past. Patent Title in Cyprus is
Yeah.
also really good with creative or investor based transactions. But Hizzle, Hizzle, we've had to switch title companies in the past because rules change, laws change, regulations change, and some people just say, we only want to do X now instead of Y. So I've had to change title companies over the time. But to give you a more direct answer, I've used Fidelity and I've used Patent Title.
Great. Probably time for a couple more questions.
Okay. Keep them coming, guys.
Yeah. The answer to this is yes. You can absolutely use multiple IRA accounts, or, for example, if you wanted to use your IRA and your wife's IRA and your HSA and your kids' ESA, all of those accounts can certainly partner together or team up, to get deals closed, make investments. That's not a problem at all. About how many deals a year do you average?
So that's really circumstantial. There was a slowdown last year. Everything's picking back up this year. When we first started, there were deals flying off the shelf. I don't really have an average for you, but at 1.4, and also this doesn't say what kind of transactions, but if you're talking about like the BRRRR Method properties I was taking on myself, it was easy for me to crank up the dial on marketing and do a single family home a quarter, one per quarter, while I was working a full-time job. But that might not work for you guys. It might drive you insane. I know I was questioning what I was doing. If you don't have a full-time job, you can probably take on a lot more. But I really don't have like an average of how many deals a year that I do. It just depends on my effort and my networking.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you want to tackle this one. It seems a little bit vague to me.
So you want to syndicate transactional lending. I think you could do this. I don't think this is something I would personally want to do. So I've seen someone do something similar to this. So how I would say you would structure it is you would just private lend to somebody's transactional funding LLC. So there's a way you can raise money to do transactional lending. And you can use my calendar link to talk to me about that if you want to get more details about that. But there's a way to structure anything. Here's the goal, or here's the trick. You're not going to do this on your own. You're going to talk to a securities attorney. And if you syndicate, once you reach out certain boundaries, you got to file a PPM. So this is not something you're going to do on yourself or Rocket or a legal Zoom or anything like that. You're going to use real professionals like your title company, the lawyers there, Quest Trust Company, and you're going to use a securities attorney if you start to syndicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And regarding the question about partnering your accounts, Rebecca did put a link in there to an article on our website that talks more about that if you guys are interested. But I think that will kind of bring us to a closing point, and certainly a ton of great questions. But certainly, Michael, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us and speak on some of your expertise and your wealth of knowledge and relaying that to kind of people on on our side too, and those that are listening in.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to get in contact with me, you got more questions, bombard me. Go to my Instagram and DM me. If you want to throw questions are still coming in. If you want to throw my little QR code thing back up there again.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
If anything wasn't answered here, you got more questions, DM me on Instagram. Instagram's where I usually post most of my deals. My Facebook's in there, and there's my calendar link in there. And again, I've got no products to sell you guys, so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions we didn't get to today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Feel free to let us both know any questions you have. We'll have the recording up here shortly, and appreciate everybody's time. Thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
All right. Thanks, everyone.